Well, hello ladies and gentlemen, PepperBelly here, bringing you guys something a little bit different, something I actually kind of do in real life, and that is the Canadian Armed Forces modification made available for ArmA 3. It's been around since the alpha and it's progressed into a nice stable version 1.5, and I'm here to showcase everything this mod has to offer. So I actually ended up organizing it kind of nicely, I think, showcasing everything between the two differences and pretty much just showing you everything the mod has to offer. So on the left side here, I have the arid desert CAD-PAT variant of the Canadian Forces, which you will typically see in Afghanistan or any desert region in any part of the world. And then of course on the right side, I have the traditional CAD-PAT uniform, green, and this is what you will normally see if you see any soldier or anybody, any member of the Canadian Forces walking around in public in Canada. This is what they will look like, minus the gear. Obviously they'll just be wearing just the pants and the shirt and a beret of some sort, so, or a headdress, because there's different types of headdress. So you can tell they have vehicles here. Obviously they can't include vehicles that the Canadian Forces actually has, because, well, that's just not possible. They were using the assets available within ArmA 3, and they kind of did it in such a way that it worked, because I mean they can only do so much. So on this side, you can tell right away from the vehicles, like they're both green. This is like the woodland style, this is the arid style, but they're still green. You're probably wondering why there's no difference there. Well, the only difference is really the driver. He has arid desert CAD-PAT, and then you look at this individual, handsome young gentleman, and he's wearing the green CAD-PAT. The only difference. Other than that, the vehicles look identical. I mean, the Canadian Forces does have a variant of truck like this. I mean, we have MSVSs, MSs, different variants of trucks. They don't look exactly like this. The MSVS is a massive, just behemoth truck. It doesn't really look like this at all. And of course, we don't have any of these vehicles, as far as I'm aware. If we do, fuck yeah, but I don't think we do. So, and this is also the Griffin, the traditional helicopter, transport helicopter. You will see, well, troop transport, nothing major. This is just, you know, a Griffin helicopter that they included. And of course, back here, what you did not see, running down the Hall of Soldiers, is a CAN SOFCOM unit included in the game, which offers, or in the mod, and this offers JTF-2, as well as the 427th Special Operations Aviation Squadron, which is the Special Forces unit that flies every other unit in CAN SOFCOM around. Now, obviously, when you're looking at it, between this Griffin and that Griffin, they don't look much different, other than the fact that the name it changes. This one's the CH-146 SF edition, and then you look over there and it's CH-146 Griffin, so not really a difference other than the fact that, hey, that one's Special Forces, this one isn't, but they look exactly the same. There's like the crew looks exactly the same. I mean, you just can't even tell. You can't even tell a difference. There is no difference, so it's pretty awesome. So I'm going to go ahead and start showing you guys the actual troops themselves. Of course, you got your snipers here, which has the intervention. So they were using the assets within ArmA 3, obviously, because this is not the sniper rifle we'd be using. We have a C3, which is, if you guys are familiar with Canadian Forces terminology and weapons, the way we named our weapons, they're all named like C something. So like right now I have a C8. Which is basically an M4 variant. It looks just like an M4. Then there's the C7, which is basically the M16 variant. It's got a longer barrel. That's pretty much literally the only difference. Everything else is pretty much the same. But here they were using the assets from ArmA 3. I mean, this one's probably the closest replica. It looks kind of like an SR-25, but it's not. It's a separate weapon. I will probably take a look at it at some point. I don't really remember. But that's probably the closest to what we kind of use as marksmen in the CF. But it's not really accurate. It kind of just looks like a long-range M4, but it fires a 7.62. So, I don't know. It's kind of a little bit different there. Then, of course, we have our vehicle techs. You have all your 84 gunners, C6 gunners, etc., which is pretty sweet. So they did a really good job actually modeling the weapons. That's one of the major things I noticed, is looking at the I'll take a look at the C7, actually. So, you can see it's pretty much the same as the C8. That's the C8 right there. This is the C7A2. The way you could tell the difference between the C7A2 and the C7A1 is just simply the buttstock and the handguards. Like the C7A1s are actually kind of all black, and the buttstock looks much like that one there. Just a simple classic M16 style. Well, now we have the collapsible buttstock, which is basically this more upgraded version, a lot better. Also, it has an ambidextrous cocking handle, which you can't really see. The C7A2 is completely ambidextrous, so you can fire it right-handed or left-handed, and it's kind of nice, actually. It really, really improves the ability of your... Well, it improves your abilities in combat. I mean, if you're left-handed, if you're actually ambidextrous yourself, shooting around corners by being able to switch left-handed and right-handed will definitely help you out in situations so you're not entirely exposing yourself when firing right-handed trying to shoot around a corner on the left side. So they have the rails included, which are kind of nice. They actually mounted a laser system on this. Now, that laser system, if you want to think of it as like the laser system we use when we're training, then yeah, I guess that works, but traditionally we don't have anything on there like that. I mean, you can easily put something on, but I mean, my unit personally, all we have is pretty much that setup there. Same rails at the front, which you can see if this guy will stop moving, which has the laser mounted on it. Pretty much looks just like that. And some of us actually have foregrips on it, so like, you'll see a foregrip because you can actually mount a rail to the bottom of that green handguard, and you could put a foregrip on it if you so desire, which is actually a collapsible foregrip. The sight itself is pretty accurately well made. I mean, I thought that was pretty cool. That's the Elcan C79A2 optical sight, and it uses like an aim post. So like a straight line aim post to aim with. It's 3.4 times magnification. Has little rubber, if you look closely, little rubber aim points on top of it to act as iron sights for CQB environments, close quarter ranges of up to 50 to 100 meters if you're a fucking sharpshooter, really good at that kind of stuff. But I mean, they really, really accurately modeled this. And of course, taking a look at the C6, this is something I find really, really well, accurately depicted, like designed. This thing looks pretty much exactly the way it looks in real life. This thing is just so accurately modeled. Looks freaking phenomenal. The bipod, the barrel itself, the gas regulator on it, everything looks pretty much spot on. The sights, it's like 100%. Every bolt is pretty much right. Every nut and bolt is in the right spot. I mean, it looks friggin' amazing. So well designed. Even the C9 looks pretty damn good as well. I mean, I've never actually seen a C6 with a box on it. Pretty sure you can put a box on a C6. I'm not saying that's not possible. I'm just saying I personally never, in my experience, ever used a box. We've always just kind of like had it hanging out the side, because usually you'd have an assistant gunner like this guy right here. Assistant C6 gunner, who would be your number 2, who would basically be feeding you the ammo while you're just sitting there melting face with 7.62 rounds, giving off some international justice, because it's a phenomenal weapon system. C9, obviously you're going to use a box on this thing. It's more compact, lighter weight, 5.56 rounds. It's pretty much like the American 249 SAW, and it has the Elcan sight mounted on top of it, which is a key difference you will notice between a Special Forces unit and this guy, is that, well, JTF2 takes the sight off, because in real life, people on deployment are not going to have the Elcan sight on their C9, just because it's retarded. I mean, from my personal experience, firing the C9 with an Elcan sight on it, it's like, it doesn't have a lot of recoil, but the weapon shakes violently, and when you're aiming down the Elcan sight, it's pretty much like vibrating so much to the point where your sight picture just gets blurry and everything looks like a dream sequence. It's kind of hard to see what you're actually shooting at. So they very accurately modeled and named every single one of these as well, which I thought was freaking awesome. I mean, they have the officer, they have the section commander, they have section 2 IC, and then everything else is kind of just named rifleman, medic, grenadier, etc. Pretty much the way it actually is. And when you actually set up a section, because you can do so, this entire row is not a section, by the way. You can actually set up a section, a weapons det, tank hunting crew, which is basically has the 84s, which if I can find an 84 gunner, I could show you. There's an 84. The Carl Gustav 84mm rocket launcher. Pretty beast of a weapon. I'll get to that at some point. I actually like how they included the monocular night vision as well, because traditionally, what I've experienced, we don't actually tend to use the dual, like both eyes are covered with night vision. We tend to use just the monocular device, one system. I mean, if you're even lucky to have a head mount, honestly, like, hell yeah, have a head mount and mount that thing to your one eyeball and like run around at night with it. That's pretty cool, considering every time I've used a monocular device, I had to hold it to my face because we never had a head mount. But whatever, I mean, not a big deal. I like how they actually kind of equip these pretty much to the ideal sense of what you would like to have in real life. They even have small packs. Some of these guys have small packs Obviously, they don't look quite the way ours look. I mean, there are some older small packs that don't have CAD pad, which you can clearly see on this guy. Then you have the CAD pad variants, and obviously the small pack in real life that we are issued, standard issue CAD pad small packs don't exactly look like that, but whatever. It's a nice feature that they added. This is actually something I noticed that was not in the original Canadian Forces mod 1.0 that I downloaded. So these small packs have been added. That's kind of more what it looks like. This is a lot more accurate. That is pretty much what the small pack looks like right here. It has the Velcro top here, so you can like Velcro your name to it or whatever the hell you want to put, your rank, etc. And then has the latches on the side, exactly like that. Normally, if we were out in the field, we'd probably mount another person's rifle here. If you're a C6 gunner, you can mount a rifle by just basically kind of using those buckles and kind of harness it, keep it nice and secure. Or if you're digging trenches, you can put tools there like pickaxes and shovels and all that junk to deal with hell. Digging trenches is not fun. But overall, solid job on the Canadian Forces mod. I mean, everything looks really, really good. I mean, I thought they did a fantastic job. I mean, obviously the goggles, we don't have goggles like that. We don't have futuristic, I mean, these are all ArmA 3 assets. But I'm guessing if this was the Canadian Forces in that time frame, that would be pretty accurate. It would look pretty much like that. So let's go ahead and take a look at the actual C8. This is the C8A3, basically a more compact, more reliable version of the M4. I know it sounds kind of ridiculous. Some of you guys probably going to shout at me and be like, what the hell are you talking about? We're the best. But I'm assuring you that Dymaco, the company who designs it, you can even see the logo on the side there, Dymaco. It says made in Canada. You even have the Canadian Forces flag and the serial number and all that stuff on the magazine housing, which is actually nice. Details included. Unfortunately, when you're flicking between fully automatic and semi, the selector switch does not change. Right now it's on repetitive, so it's assuming it's on fully automatic even though I have it set to semi. But, you know, minor things, obviously it's not that big of a difference. They're not going to alter gameplay, there's just little nice details that would be nice to have. But overall, it's not terrible, it's not going to ruin anything. So, Dymaco is known for making these weapons slightly more reliable. The internals are only different slightly to that of the M16 and A4, or M16 and M4 variants. They're pretty much identical though. Like this one, the Dymaco series kind of survives better in colder weather and is a little bit more reliable. Other than that, it's not really different from Colt's M16, M4s, any other company that makes the AR-15s, etc. All the American variants of it. So, one thing I noticed that isn't quite accurate with this particular weapon is the sight. The Elcan C79A2 optical sight. If you're aiming down it, you'll notice it has the aim point, which is realistic. That's actually what's there. However, the horizontal lines you see there, the horizontal 4 lines that usually you can use, they're in mils. So you can actually measure distances. So if I'm aiming at that tree, I'm trying to ID a target, I can be like, oh look, there's so many mils to the right by measuring with those lines. There's actually an additional line that's above one of these. Unfortunately, you can't really see it because this is not what the actual sight looks like. I mean, it's pretty accurate. It's close. It's very close, but it's a little bit off in a sense that it doesn't actually look quite like that. Now, one thing I noticed they actually did a pretty good job on is the sight ranges. So the Elcan sight actually goes from 200 meters, which is the stock variant. If you look at it, well, you can't see it changing here, but that's pretty much where I'm looking, where you see the 5, 6, and maybe a 7, the numbers there. That's actually where you would dial in the range. And it goes from 200 all the way to 800 meters. Now, obviously, 800 meters is a little bit out of reach of this weapon's effective range, considering a single soldier is probably effective up to 400 meters, 500 pushing it. But if you have a section, then the effective range of a C7 or C8 can increase to like 800 meters. That's because simply there's a lot more rounds going down range. Therefore, if you're all shooting at the same target, you have a better chance of hitting them. Whereas one soldier is less effective. It's just the way it works. It's how they kind of rate the system. I mean, overall, it's still pretty good how they did that. Very, very accurate representation. One thing I actually really, really liked is these rubber aim posts you're seeing up here. Those are actually for close quarter engagements. Now, if you're familiar with ArmA, they have multiple scope variants where you can actually aim down the sight, or you can aim with a tiny little reticle above it, so you can use it in close quarters or medium to long range. So here's your traditional sight, and then you can zoom in here and you're actually using the sight the little rubber sight above, or like on top of the sight, directly on top of it, which is actually pretty cool. I'm actually really happy they included that just because it adds the realism, because this is what you're going to use in close quarters. When you learn gunfighter drills, this is typically how you will aim, above the sight in close quarters. Either that or point shooting. So point shooting is pretty much what you're seeing here, which is like, you have the weapon shouldered, but you're not really aiming with sights. You're kind of just pointing the weapon in general direction. If you get really good at it, you can actually hit targets at up to 50 meters pretty accurately, not even aiming down your sights, just point shooting. You can get really, really good at it. I mean, these guys over here, JTF2, are pretty damn good at doing that kind of thing. But otherwise, you'd probably be aiming above the sight using this. Or even a little bit higher, to kind of just using it as a reference point, which is pretty nice. But unfortunately, a lot of them, since they're made of rubber, they'll get worn down really easily, and then they become pretty much useless, which just makes it why point shooting is a lot more important, and just aiming above it will definitely help out. So, I mean, they did a pretty sweet job. I mean, I thought this was really cool. This is the C8 variant that I have in my hands. Obviously, if I can switch classes, I can switch to the C7, which I can do right now to show you. Which I actually got to get out. Here we go. So if I switch to a typical rifleman, I now have the C7. So you can see it right now. It's pretty much identical, just a longer barrel. Same handguards, same everything. It's exactly the same weapon. It's just, it's like the M4 and M16. It's the same way that works. You know, it's just a little bit longer. Now they actually did a pretty good job. The sounds, although not 100% accurate to what the weapon actually sounds like, I thought it was really cool that you can actually see the bolt itself sliding back and ejecting the shell casings, which is actually really accurate to what it looks like. And if I empty the whole box, or empty the whole magazine, what am I talking about? See it stay back, and now the bolt's actually all the way to the rear, which is accurate to how it actually performs. And even just looking at it, the details of the bolt is pretty damn accurate. So you can see him pulls up the mag, puts a new mag in, bolt release, slides forward, and chambers around. So I mean, that's pretty damn detailed. I thought that was really, really nice how they did that. This thing also has like no recoil, which is pretty much accurate to the way it is in real life, because this thing fires a 5.56 and has like, oh, look, a butterfly. Try to kill it. But yeah, it has like no recoil. It's a very, very minimalistic weapon. Performs excellently though. I just killed that turkey or rabbit, whatever the hell that was. I don't even know how far away that is. But yeah, it's a very, very accurate weapon. Extremely accurate. I mean, I had really, really tight, not to like brag or anything, but I'm just saying that I've scored like marksman firing this weapon and like getting really, really good scores on ranges using it, because it's just such an accurate, really well, all-rounded good weapon. I mean, if you zero that sight like really, really well, then there's like, you feel like you're shooting needles at people. Like, although the round's really tiny, if you're firing this thing and you're a good marksman, like, you're gonna hit the person wherever the hell you want to hit them. It's a very accurate, very effective weapon. Obviously, it fires a 5.56, so some people will be like, that's debatable, but hey, it works. So let's go ahead and take a look at the C6, because this is something I actually thought was really, really well done. I mean, I have one small gripe with it, which I will talk about in a second, but I mean, overall, the overall look of the weapon is just solid. I mean, look at this thing. Absolutely well designed, well detailed, the sights, everything. Just freaking awesome. I think if I lower it, I can see the numerical value showing you how you dial in the sights. Right there, you can actually slide those two little levers forward or back, which basically would raise the sight or lower the sight, allowing you to engage targets at further ranges. So I mean, it's kind of cool how they did that. Anyway, so this is one thing I thought was ridiculous right here. Carrying it in the shoulder like this. This weapon is fucking heavy. No one's going to be carrying this weapon in the shoulder like this, running around, engaging targets like there's some kind of freaking cool special forces operator, because I'm telling you right now, like, you're not. I mean, it's not impossible. You can shoulder it and you can fire. I've seen people do it. It's just, it's unethical because you're not going to be accurate. This thing has a crazy recoil and it's like, it's heavy. I mean, when I was training, I was actually taught how to fire from the hip, Rambo style, with this thing, using a sling, because that's the way you're technically supposed to fire. And when you're shooting like that, you're actually not even aiming with your sights, obviously, since it's from the hip. So what you do is you watch your tracers and you want to splash your rounds and you walk the rounds into the target, which is pretty much, so basically be firing it. Obviously you can see the rounds where they're splashing, And wherever they splash, I kind of just start walking it into the target until obviously I split the guy in half. And then, well, we all go and have a fucking pie afterwards and celebrate our victory. But overall, I mean, this weapon's pretty damn accurately modeled. There's one thing I noticed though, and this is my main gripe. And this has to do with the shell casings and how they eject from the gun. So if you see me firing the C6 GPMG, the rounds are ejecting from the side. Now, to the untrained eye, or to the inexperienced, or to people who just don't know, they're gonna think this looks normal. Like, oh yeah, the rounds are ejecting at the side like most machine guns. Fortunately, the C6 GPMG, that's not where the rounds eject. The rounds actually eject where his hand is. Obviously, he's kind of holding it wrong, because his left hand should be on the buttstock right now, supporting his chin while he rests on it. That's the technical way you're supposed to be firing this thing. And right where his hand is where the shell casings would actually be ejecting, because they come out the bottom of the weapon and not the side. And where the shell casings are coming out now is where the links that hold the rounds together would actually be getting ejected. Because you got to remember that each round is held together with links, and then the links eject separately from the rounds themselves. Unlike the C9, which actually ejects the links and the rounds from the same area, this one separates them. But I mean, it's a pretty damn effective weapon. The sights are pretty accurately modeled, engaging targets at really far ranges. This C6 GPMG in the tripod setup can actually fire out to 2.4 kilometers, which is just ridiculous range, like crazy range. It's a 3-man team can operate it. I mean, it would have been cool if they actually somehow included that in this mod, have a 3-man team operating this thing, but obviously I don't think they're going to do that because it might require too much scripting and work to actually make that happen. It's kind of like the 84. You got the 84 and you have 84 assistant gunner, but it's like, although you operate the 84 in a 2-man team, the game, obviously you can just operate it as one individual soldier, which isn't quite realistic, but hey, no big deal. So let's go ahead and take a look at the C9, because that thing is just pretty cool. So, C9 gunner, here we go. Dive right into this shit. Alright, so you can see it's pretty accurately modeled right here, just taking a look at it real quickly. Again, very, very well designed, very well made. Obviously, in real life, if I was on deployment or doing anything serious where I need to kill people, I would take this sight and I'd put it in my bag like that, and then I would start shooting with the iron sights, because they're just so much better than the Elcan sight, because the Elcan sight has a magnification on it, and when you're firing it, this thing has, like I said earlier, an insane amount of like vibration to it. Not really recoil, because I mean when you're shooting it, you can see it barely moves, and when you watch someone else firing this weapon, like, it doesn't even look like they're moving. It just looks like it's a completely stationary. All you see is a muzzle flash and a bunch of shells come flying out, pretty much exactly like this. You don't really see it moving, but it vibrates like a motherfucker. And I guess some chicks would probably be turned on by that, but basically, it's a really, really high rate of fire weapon, and when you're shooting it, the sight just like jiggles and vibrates very sporadically, which makes it pretty much impossible to, like, not impossible, but I mean, it's annoying, because I mean, you can see here when I aimed on the sight and firing it, there's like very minimal vibration, where in real life, if I was shooting it, it'd be like completely just like, everything would just be all over the place. It'd be vibrating like crazy, and I wouldn't really be able to see, because it kind of, since it does that so like viciously, the vibrations, it kind of makes it very difficult, because everything kind of just looks blurry when you're aiming through it. So you'd be like looking at that tree, you'd be like, oh, there's a guy at the bottom of that tree, the base of it, I'm gonna start engaging him, you'd be shooting, and the whole thing would just vibrate like crazy, and then you wouldn't really see what the hell you're shooting at, because everything in the distance would just get blurry. So, I mean, considering, from personal experience, I was able to hit a target with a C6 using iron sights at up to 600 meters pretty damn accurately, with a spotter looking through binoculars telling me that I was hitting the target pretty spot on. Using a C9 in the same role using iron sights, it's still really easy to see where you're shooting. All you have to do is just watch your tracers, watch where the splashy rounds is, and you can just walk the rounds in your target. It's more of a suppressive weapon. It's a squad support weapon, unlike the C6 GPMG, which is a platoon support weapon, which obviously is extremely important to protect the C6 gunners. And if a C6 gunner goes down, you drop whatever the fuck you're doing and you get on that C6 yourself and start melting face with it, because it's incredibly important to keep that C6 up. It's a platoon size effective weapon. It's kind of the whole point of it, is you want to have that backing up your entire platoon, while your sections can operate with C9s in a closer range, closer proximity. The way you can set up defenses, there's all kinds of things I'm not going to get into, because it's just, that's a little bit going beyond what this mod actually contains. So let's go ahead and take a look at the CAN-SOFCOM units here. So of course we got JTF2. We have this off-road vehicle, which obviously is not what JTF2 actually uses, because this is an ArmA 3 asset. But what JTF2 uses is the Jackal. It's a Jackal fighting vehicle. It's kind of like a Humvee variant with like more weapons on it. It's got a 50 cal pretty much. It's got that exact 50 cal on it. And it has a weapon kind of mounted. I don't know. There's like, you can look it up online. It's kind of hard to find things on JTF2 because, well, they're so damn secretive. I mean, you literally, there's nothing about them. It's really hard to discover anything about JTF2. It's not like Navy SEALs or Spetsnaz or the SAS or whatever, where they kind of tell all their secrets. JTF2 is extremely, any unit in CanSoftCom is extremely hard to learn about just because there's so little information on them, because a lot of people don't even know they exist. That's just the way it is. It's the nature of the beast. These guys are fucking secretive to the core, which is pretty much ideal, and I don't want that to change because it's what makes them so damn good at their job. So this is the JTF2 unit right here. You have your assaulter, which is what they're known as. You got your assaulters, and then you have your explosive expert, your marksman, which has the EBR, which is actually pretty accurate because JTF2 has used the M38 EBR, or M39, I believe it's called EBR. I could be wrong, I don't really remember. And then the C8, which has the desert camo on it, which is pretty accurate. They have the multicam camo as well, because they look a lot more, they look completely different. If you've seen, I actually have a video on my channel you can look at. It's actually my most viewed video. It has over 80,000 views. If you go and take a look at it, it's pretty much a showcase of the unit. They made a nice video showcasing off the entire CanSoftCom, or all the units within CanSoftCom, which, like I said, is JTF2, then the 427th Special Operations Aviation Squadron, and then they have CJIRU, which is Canadian Joint Incident Response Unit, and then you got CSOR, which is Canadian Special Operations Regiment. And those are all the 4 units that are in CanSoftCom, responsible for counterterrorism and all kinds of cool shit. So, I mean, this is all they have for the Canadian Armed Forces mod in terms of special forces. They just have the air unit and they have JTF2. It would have been nice to see them include CSOR, I suppose, but CSOR, in reality, like, they're different from JTF2 in the sense that they're more like infantry based, where JTF2 is more like counter-terrorist, special forces, like Navy SEAL, kind of Delta Force-esque. CSOR is more like infantry based, so they're kind of like, it'd be more like JTF2 would be supervising or covering. JTF2 would be like, I have snipers up on a hill, overwatching CSOR, infiltrate this building kind of situation. Like, they're more counter-terrorists, they work more in smaller groups, while CSOR is a little bit more infantry-based. The only way I can really describe it, if you don't understand that, then forgive me, because I can't really describe it any better than that. But CJIRU would have been something nice to add, because CJIRU looks pretty damn badass. They're basically the Canadian Joint Incident Response Unit. They're involved in counter-terrorist activity related to biological warfare and nuclear warfare, stuff like that. And you'll see them wearing gas masks, like chemical warfare, biological warfare. They're the guys responsible for countering that kind of stuff. They look pretty damn badass. In fact, I'll just show you a picture right now. This is a Canadian Joint Incident Response Unit member wearing the gas mask, looking pretty goddamn cool with his shit. And they're pretty damn effective at doing their job. It would have been nice to see them in here just because, well, I mean, obviously they'd have to include more assets like the gas mask and some extra gear. But I mean, I can see why they wouldn't include CSOR, because there really isn't much of a difference in what they can do in between what JTF2 and CSOR looks like. They kind of look identical in their uniforms in combat. They're not that different. But CJIRU has a completely different uniform and what they look like when they're in combat. So it'd be really cool if they actually had CJIRU in this mod. Maybe at some point in the future they'll include it, but who really knows. So let's go ahead and take a look at the CanSoftCom unit. So you can see they have the Arid, Woodland, CanSoftCom. They obviously have like the cars, JTF2, etc. So Assaulter, pretty straightforward stuff here. Getting back into this, they have the sights that aren't even what they use. They typically use ACOGs or holographics, you know, different. I mean, they'll use whatever the hell they want because they're special forces operators. They put what they want on their weapons. They'll fit them the way that they deem necessary to complete the mission, and nobody gives a shit because they're fucking special forces and they can wear beards and stuff. Have beards. No, they don't. They wear the beard. They don't have the beard. They are the beard. It's part of their identity because they're so fucking cool. But yeah, so I mean, it's pretty much just a straightforward C8A3. It looks exactly the same. But I mean, they'll have like more attachments on it, customized a little bit better. and that's just pretty much the only difference. You can see though the light machine gunner doesn't have a sight on his weapon. Why? Because he's fucking smart. That's why. Because people know that an LCAN sight on a C9 is just retarded and everybody wants to take it off. You look at videos of people overseas, even just regular infantry soldiers, they will most likely remove the LCAN sight. They probably won't even take it with them when they go overseas. They'll just leave it back before they get deployed. Just take off the sight and go, because it's so much better without it. It's a fucking support weapon. You don't really want to have a sight on it. It's like, I'm a fucking snipe this guy out with this sight, like zooming in, trying to shoot people accurately with a C. It's a freaking suppressive weapon. You pump fuck tons of lead at people and hope they get ripped in pieces and crumble up in the pile of gore. That's the goal with these kind of weapons. You want to suppress the targets while everyone else can move in and mop them up. It's the whole idea. Like clearing forests, that's traditionally what you would do. You'd have like gunners watching the road while you send your infantry in, and like your riflemen and stuff, and they would flush them out, and anyone who would cross that road would get gunned down by the C9s. That's pretty much the way you would do it, or C6s, etc. It's pretty cool and elaborate how you actually conduct those operations. So let's go ahead and take a look at one last thing, which is going to be the section. I'll actually spawn a few in, actually. I'll come over here, back this way. So you can see you have your sections, you have your weapons deck, you have your tank hunting team and C6 team. So I'll actually spawn all of them. So over here is the C6 team. Over here will be the tank hunting team, which basically just contains of the 84. And then your weapons deck. And then I guess even further down this way will be the section. So they actually have the names pretty accurately laid out, which I thought was really, really cool, really well done. So come over here, let's look at here's the 84 team. So this is the C6 team. You got your assistant C6 gunner, you got your section 2IC, which is the second in command, and you got your C6 gunner himself. So that's pretty accurately laid out. You got your 84 team, 84 gunner, 80 assist, and of course, this guy. Wait a minute. I think this got all fucked up. It's kind of hard to tell because everything's all close together now. Yeah, your section, your weapons that basically would contain all the powerhouse weapons, so 84s, M72s, that kind of stuff. The stuff you really want to have. That's usually what weapons that's responsible for, is containing all like the more massive firepower weapons. And of course, way the fuck over here, you have your section. Let's go ahead and take a look, because they have them pretty accurately mapped out. I'm actually going to go ahead and remove all those guys, because they're kind of like messing shit up. Okay, delete everything. Okay, so your section. Now, a section consists of 4 teams. So you got Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, and Delta. And they actually have them pretty accurately laid out. I mean, it obviously could be a lot more accurate because it's not quite well done. When I was looking over it earlier, it's like, it's close but not close enough. So the way this would be, traditionally, the way it's actually laid out, these two guys, the C9 gunner actually right here, should be on this side. Because what you do, when you have a section, especially when they're in arrowhead formation like this, your C9 gunners will be on the ends. So you have your gunners over here, gunner will be on the end on that side. That's basically the way it works. Unfortunately, he's here. This would be Delta, for example. So this would be, these two guys would be Delta team, they're a fire team. This would be Charlie, fire team. Charlie would contain, which you can see here, this is kind of, I'll explain in a second, it's kind of fucked up. But those two on the end would be Delta, these two would be Charlie, and then these two guys here would be Alpha, and then those two guys would be Bravo. I know you're probably thinking to be like Delta, Charlie, Bravo, Alpha, but that's not how it works. It's usually Bravo, Alpha, Charlie, Delta. That's how it's labeled. That's how it's actually organized. Delta would contain a C9 gunner and a rifleman, and Charlie can contain a grenadier. It doesn't really matter. That's just traditionally how it's set up. But this is where it gets a little bit messed up, because this is Charlie team, and section commander isn't Charlie team, and that's just not how that fucking works. This is the section 2IC, that's the second in command. He would be in Charlie team right here, and most likely he'd be back here. This is where the grenadier is. This should technically be the section section 2IC. Section commander would actually be over here, and then some private would be up front. And you're probably wondering why that is, because, well, naturally, if you saw a force like this, a section, say I'm some random enemy and I'm way out in the field over here, I'm seeing them approach me, and I'm seeing one guy leading it. I'm going to assume he's the leader of this, like, section of troops. Most likely gonna pop him first. I'm gonna kill him. That's my goal. But, unfortunately for them, this is gonna be some random private who's more expendable than the squad, or the section commander and the section 2 IC, which is kind of the whole point. So you'd put him out front, so if he gets tagged first, which is the most likely scenario, if someone was going to open up on them, then all that really died is a private or corporal, and then section commander would still be here, he'd still be alive, functioning, section 2 IC would be over here, alive and functioning, unless of course they all got cut down by like machine gun fire, then that's a little bit different, but I mean that's traditionally how it works. So they're kind of in the wrong place, but overall, pretty damn accurate to how it actually is. So there's two things I kind of forgot to show you. I'm going to show you them right now, actually, and that's the Carl Gustav. I'm going to fire off around the M72. Now, I tried playing around with the M72 earlier, and unfortunately, there was nothing I could really do to, like, make that weapon function. I don't really know why. If I go here, switch back to a regular infantry soldier, go to anti-tank. So I've yet to figure this out, because I don't really know what the hell's going on. But when you pull an 80, or an M72, which is this disposable rocket launcher here, you would actually stretch this out. So right now it's compact, it's closed up. What you would do is you would actually, where you could see kind of like that little, right near his helmet actually, there's a raise. You actually see like the rubber trigger there, that's actually right next to his helmet as well. That's where you actually pull a trigger. So this is kind of wrong in the way that he's holding it. But you would actually extend this and then fire it. And I don't really know how you would do that, since he won't seem to, I don't know, he doesn't seem to extend it. I'm not entirely sure. It kind of says that it's empty, which doesn't make any sense because these things are built, and they're waterproof too, because they're just built with a round in it, and once you fire it, it's useless. Unless, of course, you're Taliban and you manage to find and salvage one of these empty pieces and turn it into a mortar, which has been done in real life. But I mean, you can even see the pin in the back, which is actually really, really cool. Right near the tip of the rifle there, actually, you can see the pin that you would unlock, which basically allows those rubber covers on the end to come off, which then exposes it, and you would stretch out the weapon, and then you would lock it in place, and then you'd fire off a round and pretty much hopefully kill some people with it. But I'm not entirely sure how to make this thing function, because I don't know, I haven't figured it out. I've been playing around with it quite a bit. In version 1.0, I would open it up and it would be good to go, like, instantly, but for some reason here, I don't know what the button is to make it work. Like, I don't know. I'm trying to figure out what the hell would make it fire, but I don't know. It's just, but that's basically how this weapon would function. It's accurately modeled, which I like, but unfortunately I can't figure out how to get the damn thing to work. So, I don't really know anymore. Anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and take a look at the 84 now, which does work, and is pretty goddamn badass. Now, like I was saying earlier, this is traditionally a two-man operation, two-man weapon. So you would have one team, or one man, who would actually be like hugging you, essentially. I know it sounds kind of gay, but hey, it's the army. So he would be hugging you and be on this side. So pretty much where I am right now. I'd be standing here right now hugging this guy. I'd be the one responsible for functioning the entire weapon other than pulling a trigger. He's responsible for the safety and pulling a trigger. That's literally the only difference. So very accurately modeled. This thing is a fucking beast, first of all. I got the luxury of being the number 2 on this thing, and it's just crazy when you shoot this thing. If anyone's behind you, they're pretty much instantly going to be incinerated and killed. It's an unbelievable weapon. 84mm round. It's a rocket launcher, recoilless. And even though it has no recoil, it's still mind-blowingly, like, holy shit when you fire it. You feel your organs just go, it's fucking crazy. It's just one of the coolest weapons I ever got the privilege of firing. So you can see even the black nubs there, that's the Venturi lock. They're actually really accurately displayed. Typically you'd pull those two apart, and then that whole back end would slide open, and then you could pull the round out, put a new round in, close it back up, secure the Venturi lock, and then fire off a round, which is actually pretty great. They don't have any animations for it, so all it really does, and it's pretty damn loud. When you fire it, that's pretty much how it fires in real life. Now you can see I'm reloading it right now, which is kind of retarded, because that's just not what it looks like when you reload. They don't have an animation for it, unfortunately. Although it would be nice, but they don't. And I mean, this thing, it sounds pretty accurate. That's pretty much what it's like. It's not even like a, it's just a really, really loud boom. It's the only way I can describe it. When you fire this thing, it's just like, it's crazy, first of all. things just go black. So the iron sights are actually well depicted as well. Very well detailed, actually. You can see the range on the side there. You can dial in the range. There actually is a sight you can use on this thing, which they currently do not have, but it's in this mod. They don't have it, but it's actually a sight, like a modifier or a magnification sight you can mount on the side instead of using these iron sights, which helps you engage targets a lot more accurately. But overall, really solid, well-designed, well-portrayed weapon in this mod. Looks exactly like it does in real life, other than the fact it doesn't function, and you don't have a second assistant gunner on you like you would in real life. But other than that, this mod is pretty damn solid. Unfortunately, I have yet to find a mission that actually utilizes these assets, because that would be nice to see someone actually utilizing the Canadian Armed Forces mod in a campaign of some sort, or including missions. Fortunately, I'm terrible at making missions in the editor. I mean, this is pretty much all I was able to put together in the editor, or just spawn a bunch of random guys and shoot each other in a close quarter environment or something, or at range, but actually making a mission, yeah, probably not very good at that. So I'm hoping someday people will actually go crazy and make this into an actual, start making actual missions utilizing these assets, because they're pretty damn sweet and very, very accurately portrayed, and I think they did a really damn good job with it. That pretty much concludes the showcase, guys. My name's PepperBelly. Thank you very much for joining me today. See you guys next time. Take care.